I have a truth to share. It's a difficult truth, and there are several layers to this truth. In 1990, my son took his own life, and for a long time, I didn't know how to grieve. Not because I didn't feel it, but because no one ever showed me what grief was allowed to look like in a man. I honestly didn't know how to act or be. I never let anyone see me cry, not when my soul felt destroyed, not when my heart was shattered, not even when everyone else stayed silent about it. I was expected to tell them when I hurt or I needed something. I couldn't because I didn't know what it was or how to ask. But inside, I expected that I was expected to be strong. Let me repeat that. Inside, I expected that I was expected to be strong, to be stable. I thought that meant I should be the rock. But let me tell you something. When I lost my boy, there was no rock left, only rubble. And yet, I didn't fall apart. Not because I was unbreakable. Oh, hell no. But because I wasn't allowed to. And if you've ever lost someone, really lost someone, you know exactly what I mean. There's a rule written into modern masculinity. Men don't grieve out loud. We're allowed to be angry, allowed to be distracted, allowed to, even expected to, bury ourselves in work. But cry? Oh no. Break? Absolutely not. Not even in private. Admit that we don't know how to go on? That makes people, even those closest to you, uncomfortable. So we become the protector, even when we're the one who is dying inside. We're bleeding, yet we're protecting their feelings. We're the stabilizer, even when our world has collapsed. I did my grieving privately, not in front of my wife, who was his stepmother, not in front of my stepchildren, his stepbrothers and sisters, not in front of my mother or my sister. They all made it clear my grief was too difficult for them to witness. And if your grief, mine, and if your grief lasts too long, they tell you to move on. At first softly, subtly, then later louder, forcefully. Be strong. Oh, be a man. Stop living in the past. They don't see what it's like to walk around with a hole in your chest and still be expected to function. They only see their awkward discomfort is more important than your suffering. They don't see that you're still showing up, barely, without anyone to lean on. When women face true tragedy, they gather together, they talk, they cry together, they dissipate the pain by sharing it with each other. Most men do not process in any way close to that. A modest minority of men need to cry freely, openly, while openly showing their deep anguish. But their anguish is still private, privileged, sincere. It's almost only seen by one trusted person. There's no sharing in that grief, only acceptance and support. Most men, the big vast majority of us, eulogize their grief. We stand shoulder to shoulder with other men. We turn to action. Most men will often create a monument. They may start a golf tournament, build a foundation, or simply fish all the rivers in Montana. All of it is in the child's name. Each action is a piece of grief worked out. Society, and especially women, don't understand this. So all too often, they condemn the man for being cold and unfeeling. They can and do insist the man act how they think he should. When pushed, many men give in. When they do, it's performance, not grief. And in performance, there is no healing. When men aren't allowed to grieve as a man, the grief doesn't disappear. It turns inward. It becomes something else. Shame for being a weakling, not being a real man. Emotional distancing to isolate for safety, because that's all there is. Numbness to avoid the grief. Or never relenting anger that permeates every thought and every fiber of your being. You stop feeling joy. You stop expecting comfort. You keep going, but everything feels heavy. Grief changes form, and it changes how we cope. We don't heal, we harden, because no one ever gave us permission to do anything else. No one saw what it cost me to wake up each morning. No one saw the moments I collapsed behind closed doors. No one saw the day I stopped hoping for comfort, because it never came. I was the father. I was the husband, the man who had to be strong, the co-worker. But inside, I was just a father whose child had died, with no place to put that pain. So I buried it, told myself it was private, that I would be fine. But years later, the silence was still cold. Because men do grieve. Yeah, we really do grieve. We just do it alone. We cry while driving. We flinch at birthdays and holidays. We hear a song, and it just knocks the breath out of us, and we say nothing, because no one taught us how. And quite frankly, no one is listening. There comes a moment when holding it in stops working, when the cost of pretending becomes greater than the fear of being seen. And if you're lucky, you let the grief breathe. You cry without apology. You speak their name. You stop trying to justify the pain. You let the sorrow move through you. Not to erase the loss, but to honor the love. Because grief is not weakness, it's devotion. It's the proof that something mattered. And no man should have to carry that alone. If you've been told, oh, get over it, if you felt ashamed for still hurting, let me say this plainly. You are not broken. You're grieving. And you are allowed to miss them, allowed to honor your loss in your own way, allowed to cry. That is what you need. Allowed to not have the words. I don't have the words. It doesn't matter if you don't have the words. You're allowed to not have the words. Allowed to symbolize, eulogize, pay homage if that is what you need. You are allowed to be a man in grief, however you need to be that man. If no one ever gave you that space, well, this is it, here, right here, on this channel with each of us. This is not weakness. This is sacred ground. You are still standing, not because you ignored the pain, but because you carried it. And now, you don't have to carry it alone.